Chapter 10, Dina's Story. I grew up in an abusive home. My dad had a real hot temper, and at any time anything wasn't perfect or done right away, we'd pay for it. He was physically abusive and quite verbally abusive to my brother. Usually, when he would lash out at us children, my mother would go into the bedroom and just kind of wait for it to be done. He told her if she got involved, it would be worse, so she needed to stay in her bedroom. She did because she loved her children and thought that was the best thing for her to do. When I was about 11 or 12, my parents decided to divorce because my dad was having an affair. My mom finally called social services. They came out and investigated the situation and said, "He's not allowed to hit any of you kids again. If he does, call social services." That kind of ended that. When my parents divorced, I went to live with my mom, who had moved into an apartment. We all were under a lot of stress, and my mom noticed that I was getting more depressed and aggressive toward my baby sister, who was 10 years younger than I. Mom ended up forcing me to go live with my dad, who had remarried soon after the divorce. He was no longer violent, apparently due to the new wife and a change in circumstances. My brother also lived with him. My mom then moved into a town that was about 4 hours away to go back to school. A year after she moved, I went to live with her. It was a small community, which was very different from where I grew up. Everybody got together a lot, and I felt like I never really fit in. I had a lot of anger trapped inside, anger about the divorce, anger about witnessing the affair, anger about life. I never had a feeling of being at peace, so I started hanging out with the wrong kind of people. I went from just friends hanging out on the weekends to friends going to drinking parties every Friday and Saturday night. We also started smoking marijuana. I had come from a religious family, and I did have standards and morals somewhere in me, but I just quit following them for a while. Along the way, I met this boy. He had makeout sessions with all my friends, and it was kind of like my turn. We started dating and had been going out for about 4 months. One time we got really drunk and high, and he raped me. I didn't know what to do. As the rape was happening, I can still remember trying to get him to stop, but he wouldn't. I felt so ugly and dirty at that point, and I just really hated myself. I went home at 5 o'clock in the morning. By 7 a.m., I was up and we hung out again. In fact, we hung out every day because in the process of dating, I stopped going to school. I was 14 and in the 8th grade. The next day, when we were hanging out, he started kissing me and acting like he wanted to have sex again. I said I didn't want to and that I wanted to wait until I was married. He said, "Well, you're already a slut and a whore, so what are you trying to prove? You have nothing to prove now. It's all gone. You're already a whore, so you might as well do it anyway." I, not knowing that I had value and could say no, let him have his way with me. I just remember lying there with tears streaming down my face. He didn't even notice or care. It was very painful, especially since I was not intoxicated this time. It was even worse for me the second time. Inside, I felt like I really loved him, and I wanted him to love me. I thought he was going to want to marry me. He was going to want to be my husband. He was perfect. As time went on, he continued to do whatever he wanted with me, whenever he wanted. Then it grew more aggressive and more violent. Within 6 months, I was pregnant. I had just started my period soon after my 14th birthday, and now at 14 years and 4 months, I was pregnant. I didn't want to admit it, so I didn't tell anyone. I didn't even think about it myself. He'd say, "I think my baby is in there." And I would say, "Oh, no, 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 I'm not pregnant." I said, he was just being silly. I thought about being pregnant, but no one else knew until I was about 6.5 months along. My mom finally put 2 and 2 together and figured it out. By then it was too late to consider abortion, nor that I would have agreed to do it. I had a sonogram and found out the baby was a girl. Okay, I thought, I'm having a baby. It will be fine because we'll get married. He loves me. He's just stressed out because we're so far apart. About that time, my mom graduated from school and got a job. She moved to another town and I moved with her. We lived in a duplex. I had one side and she and my siblings had the other. The boy, the father of my child, would get a ride and come up every weekend or every other weekend. Neither of us had a driver's license. He was only 15 and a half years old. We stayed together in a duplex with my mom. I went back to high school and started work evenings. He was really sweet at this point when he came to visit. I found out later, however, that he had multiple women when he wasn't around me. I had a baby and I was going to high school, a ninth grader with a baby. I would leave her with daycare when I was at school, and my mom would watch her when I was at work after school. It was rough, but I just figured I'd do what I had to do to take care of my baby. When my dad found out I had a baby, he wanted me to give her up for adoption. But I told him I couldn't do that. He said it was the best thing for her because she would never have a normal, happy life. I decided at that point that I wouldn't speak to him anymore. My mom ended up not being able to care for herself any longer. She was a teacher and had a hard time with the principal. It was a really small town. It was all friends and politics, so she ended up having to leave. She moved in with my uncle, but I was told they didn't have room for my baby and me. At that point, I had nowhere to go because I couldn't get an apartment by myself since I was still too young.